Give him a pat.
All right. Thank you, Yoni. I took Yoni's advice and I called Kevin for my NRA instructing. Had a lot of fun. I learned a lot. He has great passion. He's a great instructor, and that's why he's here today. So I'd like to introduce Kevin. Kevin Arias is a lead instructor and founder of the Guardian Personal Defense Training, located in Oswego, Illinois. Kevin has dedicated his adult life to protection of his fellow men. He joined the United States Army as a junior year of high school and left for basic training 2 weeks after graduating high school. Kevin served for 4 years active duty in electronic warfare signal intelligence analysis. Wow. You can't tell you or he'll have to kill you, what that means. After separating from the Army, Kevin decided to pursue his career as a firefighter and joined the Tri-State Fire Department in 1997. He still works for the Tri-State where he holds the rank of lieutenant. Very nice. Kevin's dedicated to personal growth led him to pursue a bachelor's degree while working 2 jobs raising a young family. In August of 2013, Kevin obtained his bachelor's degree in business management with high honors. 8 months later, Kevin founded Guardian Personal Defense Training in April of 2014. Since then, Kevin has helped develop curriculum for the Second Amendment Training Division. He helped establish an air rifle program for the Girl Scouts of Northern Illinois. He was handpicked for the NRA focus group, this is important, and has been co-presenter of the first annual NRA Carry Guard Expo. Kevin has also developed a 4-part defensive pistol course, which I'd like to take, for RKA Gun Gallery Plano, and heads up their tactical shooting club. Additionally, Kevin is training counselor with both NRA and USCCA and holds numerous instructor certifications. He's also senior black belt martial arts instructor with 20 years of total martial arts experience. He looks soft, Lisa.
You don't want to start off.
Certifications are the NRA basic pistol, basic rifle, basic shotgun, personal protection inside the home, personal protection outside the home, range safety officer, range safety officer, refused to be a victim in defense of pistol, which sounds interesting, we'll talk later. From the USCCA, he's a training counselor, he's a CERT instructor, a laser instructor, UTM instructor, Illinois Tactical Officer Associated Certified Risk and Task Force. So at this point, I'd like to introduce Kevin. Kevin.
Give me 1 second, I'm gonna plug my machine in here. Hopefully I don't get the low battery symbol, because when this thing tells me low battery, what that means is I'm about to shut off.
It doesn't give you a grace period at all.
No. Actually, I think it gives me about enough time to plug it, so. So, thanks for the introduction and the kind words, of course, and thank you all for having me out here. So, I'm going to be talking about situational awareness. I actually do a personal protection class that I borrowed a lot of this from. If we have time, I'll go over a little bit of that curriculum because I think it's important. But hopefully, I was talking to someone earlier. My sincere hope is that you guys heard this all before, right? Because that means you're on the right track as far as staying safe. But if not, hopefully we'll address it and we'll take care of some issues. All right, so feel free to ask questions. All right, just raise your hand, please. We'll keep them at a minimum. I'll be available after this, between this and when you guys go shoot. So if you have any questions, want to talk to me, pick my brain on anything, please feel free, all right? Raise your hand, like I said, be respectful of others, which seems like you guys are. You guys are together a lot, so that's awesome. By the way, I love what you guys are doing. Keep that up. I love seeing groups like this. Restrooms, you probably know where the facilities are better than I do, as I'm a guest here, but they're out there and to the left. Refreshments, I think you got enough, right? Anyone hungry? And then exits. From what I saw, there's one way out of this room, obviously. 2 ways out of the store, front and back. So left or right. From here, I'd probably go right if it was an emergency. That's just me. All right, so we're going to get right into it, all right? Awareness preparation. I started out with a quote. A commander may be forgiven for being defeated, but never for being surprised. All right, so before we go on, and especially since this is being recorded, I have to give credit where it's due. I once heard a good colleague of mine, a good friend of mine, said that a good instructor is a good thief. So I pulled from Gavin DeBecker, from Steve Tirani, from Colonel Jeff Cooper himself, who was just phenomenal. From NRA Refuse to Be a Victim program. I'm sure I'm missing a couple, and if so, I apologize, but I want to make sure that I'm not claiming anybody else's material as my own, that I'm just redistributing it. So situational awareness is the ability to identify, process, and comprehend the critical elements of information about what is happening to the team with regards to the mission. More simply, knowing what's going on around you, right? That's from the United States Coast Guard. So let's talk about this. And be honest, who sized me up when I came in here? Anybody look at me? Anyone have an opinion about me?
You're a big dude.
Good sized guy, right? How about something about situational awareness? So in a little bit of the description, I said it's more than color codes and OODA loops, right? And this is going to sound funny, but let's talk right off the bat. Anyone notice that I'm a little phallically challenged? All right. Now, from a situational awareness standpoint, from a martial arts standpoint, on my end, I don't have a handle, right? All right. So I know it sounds a little silly, maybe, but that's all part of what we'll talk about with situational awareness. What do you have working for you, and what do you have working against you, right?
Is that why you choose to go bold?
Nah, the good Lord took care of that on his own. All right, so there's some primary elements of situational awareness, right? First is the realization that evil exists. I once heard a sermon, and I really like what the pastor said. He said that the greatest trick that the devil's pulled is to convince people he doesn't exist. In today's society, a lot of people tend to not believe in evil, and you hear some of this new age secular stuff kind of, oh, you know, everybody's good. No, it's not the reality. There is evil in the world. And I put the next one, it's also the realization that bad things can and may happen to you and your loved ones. Folks, I'm sorry, none of us are that special, all right? Evil people do evil things to us, and they don't care about who we are, they don't care about our families or anything else, all right? So just keep that in mind. Take responsibility for your own safety, right? What's the old saying? When an emergency hits, cops are 4 or 5 minutes away. 4 or 5 minutes is a long time, I'll tell you what. A lot can happen in 4 or 5 minutes. And then the other thing is you want to always trust your gut / your intuition. I like this, data plus intuition equals better decisions. I mentioned Gavin DeBecker earlier, and I'll mention a couple books. I strongly recommend, especially for the ladies in your life, Gavin DeBecker's book, The Gift of Fear. It talks all about intuition, all right? And that's something that we're blessed with as a higher thinking form of the top of the food chain. That's unique to us. And basically what it is it's our brain saying, hey man, something's wrong. I don't have the time to explain it. Just move or just do something. Don't ignore that, all right? Don't ignore that for political correctness or anything else. If something doesn't look right, doesn't smell right, it ain't right. All right? Just please don't ignore that. If you couple that with good training, good observations, we'll get into observations in a little bit, then it's going to help you make better decisions and hopefully better enable you to deal with a number of situations. All right, I'm sure a lot of you have seen this. Colonel Cooper, it says here, developed by the Marine Corps in the Pacific during World War II to help Marines mentally prepare for an attack. It was later modified by Colonel Jeff Cooper. You ever have a chance to read any of his stuff, too? He is like the grandfather of pretty much all things personal defense. Towards the end, you'll see a whole bunch of quotes from him because they're relevant. We can talk about them a little bit more. The one thing, if I may, the one thing I think that there's a little bit of a drawback with his color codes, and I love them, is that look at this layout, and we'll get into that in a second, but look at this layout. Doesn't it look like a checklist? Right? Does that give the air of any continual process? And I like it, and I think it's important. We have white, which is completely unaware. All right, come on. Who's been the person walking down the street or something? Right? I know some of you, if you don't want to raise your hand, that's fine. But yellow is relaxed but aware. They call it relaxed aware, actually. Orange is potential threat identified. And then red, of course, is man, oh man, something's wrong and we need to act. There's another one that people often talk about, which is black, which what they find out is people who aren't trained, people who don't know what to do. There's a lot of people out there who will simply freeze. Right? Ooh, don't do that, please. Please. And let me take that as a sidebar. You saw my bio and everything. I'm a longtime martial artist. And let me ask you guys real quick, what do you think the #1 benefit of martial arts training is? Anyone got any ideas? No ideas are bad, right? Just give me a couple.
Discipline, health.
Discipline, health, I love it. Those are both great things. Anyone else?
Automatic reaction.
And that's where I'm getting at. Let's stop right there, right? Every single time I walk into martial arts class, I stand in front of somebody who's going to attack me, right? I get attacked all the time. Sounds horrible, right?
The punching bag.
Yeah, right. By the way, my best block is with my face, but anyway, yeah, sometimes. But anyway, the point is that that's a conditioned response, right? As soon as there's a threat, I work on that immediate reaction time, right? And later on, maybe after this, if you guys want, I'll tell you a story about where that training really worked. It wasn't a cool life or death situation, but it's a funny story. All right, so it was developed by civilians, or for civilians by Cooper to educate civilians in being more aware of their surroundings and to help them avoid violent encounters. When are you in condition white the most? Or at home, right? How about this? Who carries at home? Like in your house? Oh man, you guys got it. Yeah, awesome, awesome, awesome. Cool, 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 cool. How about this? Who has a home invasion plan? You know, we always teach our kids, you know, what to do if there's a fire in the house, right? Anybody teach their kids what to do if someone kicks on the front door to come get you? Yeah, I do too. But if you don't, you might want to think about that, all right? Sitting there watching TV, even if you have a gun in a gun box, how long does it take you? In fact, I'll challenge, there's one for you. Next time you guys meet, just take a regular box. Heck, it can be the case that your gun came in, right? Just take a regular box, put it down there, say go and hit a shot timer, see how long it takes you to take that gun out of the box under a control condition. And then imagine coming out of it dead sleep, etc., etc. Just some things to think about. All right, so in the personal defense world, this is kind of where we started with the color codes, and they're great, and we still teach them. But now we're starting to teach them a little bit in conjunction with this. Anyone seen the OODA loop, right? So, let's talk about the OODA loop. The OODA loop is much more than this. The best way I can say is if you have the time, because it's a lot of time, read Boyd's book, which is, he's a humble man, so his book's called Boyd. But go ahead and give it a read. It gets into this a lot more in depth. But anyway, it's a decision cycle of observe, orient, decide, and act, developed by U.S. Air Force Colonel John Boyd. Observe is your data collection process. You're taking information in, right? There's two factors that can negatively affect the stage, which is denial and an emotional filter. One of the things that happens a lot of times when someone's attacked is initially when that attack first starts, is literally, and victims who've been interviewed have said this and backed it up. In fact, I have the misfortune, I guess, of knowing a young lady who was violently attacked. But anyway, and she said that this definitely happened to her, is that they start thinking this can't be happening, this can't be happening. Well, what do you think's happening to you while you're sitting there saying this can't be happening? It is happening, and you're getting your you-know-what handed to you, right? So denial can mess you up, and an emotional filter. Who here, hold on, we're on tape, so I'm not going to ask that, but I was going to ask who here wants to go around beating people up, so don't say, but my point is I think that most of us, especially responsibly armed people, really our goal is to avoid trouble in the first place, and we don't want to do that. So emotionally, you might have that hang-up of, oh man, I don't want to hurt this person. Well, too bad, because they want to hurt you. And life gets real simple right then. It's them or you. All right. Then orient, which is the data processing phase. Okay, great. I collected a bunch of data. Now what do I do with it, and how do I use it? And then decide. Your action plan is determined, of course. And then act is the implementation or action plan. One of the reasons why I like this picture of the OODA loop is because this circular thing shows continuous movement, right? And that's exactly what should be happening. You should be taking in data regularly, processing it, and then deciding on what to do with it. The other secret with the OODA loop is that what you want to do is you want to do what they call get inside of your opponent's OODA loop, right? So if you can do anything that disrupts their ability to observe, orient, decide, and act, then you're winning. And what I usually call that is taking control of the situation, right? A very boiled down, very simple explanation or example of that would be if someone physically attacks you and they punch you a couple times. Well, if they don't knock you out and you punch them back harder and make them stumble, you then regain control of that situation, and now you put them on their heels and now they have to react to you. Make sense? So it's an ongoing, continuous process. Yeah, that gets a little busy, right? We'll stick with the other one, it's a lot easier. But this is kind of a more expanded view of the OODA loop. Unfolding circumstances. Unfolding circumstances is a good one, right? Because things change, right? Things change all the time. Outside information, etc., etc. I won't go over it because we're limited on time. But you can look it up online. You can read John Boyd's book, Boyd. And any more questions, you can catch me after class. All right. So talking about being situationally aware a little bit. So what do you guys think? And again, no wrong answers here, right? I just want to get you thinking. I like having interactive classes. So what do you think the goal of situational awareness is? Why be situationally aware?
So you know what's going on.
Yeah, so you know what's going on, yeah,
Someone once
absolutely.
said to me,
Not to be
why is
caught on
my
guard."
head always moving? I said, if it's moving, I'm seeing what's going on around me.
Absolutely. Who else?
Not to be caught on guard.
Yeah, don't be caught off guard,
Avoid potential situations.
Yeah, because I always say that the best way to avoid, or the best way to survive a violent confrontation is avoid it in the first place, right? That's a good one. I always use the example of, anybody been walking down the street, I mean, you guys live in a pretty populous area. Anyone been walking down the street and see someone you just know they're not having a good day?
Yes. Walk across the street, walk the other side.
Yeah, so what if your face is in your phone and you run into somebody, maybe just got some really bad news, a medical diagnosis, wife left him, whatever, and he doesn't know you from anybody, but all of a sudden you are the object because you had the nerve to bump into him. You are the object he projects on you, and you now become the object of all of his problems. It's not unfair, yeah, but when some people are in emotional states, they do things they wouldn't normally do, right? I'm just saying that that's a very benign example of what could happen if you're not paying attention. So those are all great answers. And it's going to vary. You could go to another talk on this and someone else is going to have another idea on it. For me, time, right? It can gain you time, right? The more time you have, time equals options. More time, more options, less time, less options, right? Think about when you're driving in your car. Okay, first of all, I live way out in the suburbs, right? I forgot what city drive is like. You guys don't leave room for anything, right? But my point is who's ever been driving, maybe city type driving a little too close to someone, you hit their hooks. I mean, you don't have any time to think of anything other than just say, oh, maybe whatever your favorite expletive is, and you hit the hooks too, right? As opposed to if there's a little more space, let's say you're taking a road trip, you're in Kansas, and you can see for miles, you see something happening, you have plenty of time. You gradually slow down. You start thinking, okay, what's that car doing? Why are they stopping? When that person's right in front of you, all you can think to do is stop. If they're a little bit ahead of you, why are they stopping? What's going on? Is something running across the road? It's the same thing with your own personal safety. The earlier you can detect a threat, let's put it to you this way. If I'm walking down, remember years ago that knockout game that was going around? Right?
Yeah.
So back when that was going on, if I'm walking down the street with my family and I see a group of late teen, early 20 kids walking towards me, I'm probably going to walk to the other side of the street because that was a thing back then, right? And it just, what's that hurt?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Not worried about that. Wimp, right? And that's a good point. Check your pride at the door. You know what I mean? It's being safe is like carrying. Everybody carry in here? Pretty much, all right. Being safe is like carrying. It's a huge pain in the butt. It's a big inconvenience on your life. Let's talk about that in my bio. I was an intelligence analyst, right? What do intelligence analysts and law enforcement have in common? We all look for patterns, right? Guess what bad guys do? They look for patterns. Now, this person that they had in Rogers Park, I think he might be a little more random. Who knows? Maybe not. But and there's random violence like that too. But sometimes people get stalkers or somebody gets matched at whatever, and the patterns will be what gets you. So when you can, and I know it's difficult, vary up your routine a little bit.
You're walking to synagogue, occasionally I'll turn around. Let's come back, you know?
Yeah.
Just, I'm fogging out when I'm walking, occasionally I'll just spin around and keep on walking.
Well, 4 years ago, I was walking to synagogue Friday afternoon, like leaving from synagogue. There were two guys on our block, they weren't supposed to be there. Left in my full Shabbos car, came back, and they were in our backyard. They were behind my building.
Really?
They saw me leave.
Ah, sure.
They saw me leave the front door.
They assumed you were
I was
there.
wearing my hat. I was wearing my suit. I was going to synagogue. It was Friday night.
So what'd you do?
I saw them. I came back upstairs, told my mom to call the police, and I yelled at the back door like, "I'm taking on the garbage," and they left their cart. They had a black little pulley cart.
No kidding.
So they left it in the backyard, behind a building. And they took off running.
So there's a pretty good real life example of situational awareness, right? Saw something that wasn't right, went back to that intuition thing, something didn't seem right.
Turned the corner, waited 10, 15, 20 seconds, turned back.
Doesn't sound like you cared about looking silly or anything, did you? No, not at all, right? Awesome, good job. So the importance of time. Time equals options. It's also directly related to control. So for example, a spontaneous attack forces you to react. I used that example just a little bit ago. Somebody punches you in the mouth. You don't have time to formulate a plan, it's already done, right? Your mind's reeling and your mind's going, what just happened? And And, you know, you'll be lucky to figure out what to do, you know, before you get smacked again. Time allows us to prepare and increases our data gathering and processing abilities, the observe and orient part, right? So that's why you should always be paying attention. I have a colleague of mine, he talks about being present-minded. I like this. So present-minded, let me give you an example of what that looks like. Let's say you go to the grocery store right now. I'll admit that I've been guilty of this. You go to a grocery store, and who actually takes the time to be present-minded? What I mean by that is, who takes the time to say, okay, I'm pulling into my parking space. I'm putting my car in the park. I'm getting out of my car. There's a silver sedan next to me. I'm closing my door. I'm walking through the parking lot. Nah, man. Well, I'm married, so first thing I'm thinking is, man, oh man, that honeydew, if I don't get that loaf of bread, I'm dead. And that's, if I leave that store with nothing else, it's what my wife told me to get. But my point is usually we're preoccupied with other things we have to do. It might be as simple as, okay, after a grocery store, I have to go do this, and this. Something as simple as that can distract you from what's going on. There's a guy I work with, I don't know if you heard about the shooting that took place in a parking lot in Plainfield. Plainfield, Shorewood, I'm not sure. They come together right there. And this guy, he was there when it happened. And he said it was crazy because he said that he was paying a little bit of attention, not as much as he should, and all of a sudden, he's getting ready to walk up to the store, and all of a sudden he looks, he's like, okay, something's weird. Because there were like shopping carts abandoned. He shot literally right after it happened. And people just let their shopping carts down for cover, and then he's like, oh man, this. And then he kicked in and found some shelter behind a car, tried to look around and find out what was going on. Okay, so awareness preparation, mental preparedness, conduct mental exercises. What do we mean by that? Anybody have any ideas of what that would look like?
So, what if this happens, what then happens?
Yeah, that's a good one. How about this? Yeah, go ahead.
The other thing is what looks out of order.
Yeah, you always want to look for something that's nuts or that's, I actually put later on, and you'll see in a couple slides, and I put it 3 times, profile, profile, profile. Now, I understand in today's society that word gets kind of a negative connotation, but what I mean by that is look for something that doesn't belong. That's what I mean by profile. You know, it's, the example I like to use is, if you're in the, if you're on the west side of the city, you know, where it's really bad, and you get a young white kid in a Lexus, well, if you're a cop, you're going to think the kids are buying drugs, right? Because he doesn't belong there. That's the kind of profiling cops do that, right? They do that all the time. Unfortunately, today's society, they make a presumption about that, but the point is that they look for things, remember patterns, things that don't belong. Yeah, exactly right. The other thing with mental exercises, and this is the unpleasant part, who's ever thought about actually visualize getting attacked? Who's actually visualized someone coming at them with a knife to stab them, or pulling a gun on them, or beating them with a bat or something? I mean, that's all horrible, horrifying stuff, right? But that's a mental exercise in and of itself. And why do we do that? One of the reasons why we do it is obviously to be prepared, but one thing I want to back up that I wanted to talk about earlier is, when does, and I'm going to back up, I apologize, but when does your whole approach to being safe, when does that all start?
So
Your
walk out the front
situational
door
awareness.
In the morning, walk out and look around.
Yeah, I'm going to say even a little bit
Cars.
before that, when you wake up. How about this? Like I said, I'm a fireman. I've been a fireman for over 20 years. Anybody think that maybe I'm a little beat up physically? And that takes a toll on your body, putting all that stuff on. So as soon as I wake up, every morning I'm like, okay, how am I feeling?